Okay, so here are today's salads. We're going to do a French lentil salad with beets, baby spinach, and feta. And I'll talk about ways that I'm tweaking it today after I practiced these over the weekend, just things I would prefer differently. But if you want to stick to the recipe as is, that's perfectly fine. But just to little, talking moments, I guess you could say, tweaking it to your own taste. And then I'll do a wilted Swiss chard and butternut squash salad. So that's a fun one. I like Swiss chard. I used to grow Swiss chard, so it's nostalgic for me to do that one. So hopefully it's something you'll like too. All right, so I'm going to stop sharing now and I'll get started. The lentils, I thought I'd be cooking them during class. They cooked so quickly. I thought they'd be finishing up. It wasn't nearly as long as they said. So I'm gonna start talking about this one. Then I'm going to do a few things and then we'll get to the Swiss chard one as well. So my timing might be a little bit different, so I'll think it through as we go along. But these are done. And to do green lentils, has anybody had green lentils or French lentils? They're called, what are they called? Green lentils, petite French style. Anybody had any of those before? They're like a green color. I'm going to show you the dry version right here. I'm going to show you the camera there. That is just, instead of typical brown or red, you see it's a green. Almost looks like closer to a split pea, you could say, dried split pea, but much smaller. And you cook them just like you would anything else with lentils, any other way with lentils. And it said might take longer because they have a heartier texture. But for me, it didn't take longer. So it still took about maybe 15, even just 15 minutes max today to get these to more of a, I do like them though a little bit al dente, the lentils, because the last thing you want is lentils to go mushy. So I'm always careful not to go too far. When I think they're done, I take them out and I put them in the cold water, rinse them off with cold water. I think that's just to also keep them from getting too mushy. And this salad could be warm or cold either way, I think, because if you served it quickly after these are ready and they're still warm, that's kind of a nice way to serve it. But today it'll be a little cooled off because they finished early, so that'll be another way to have it. I'm going to stir it a little bit. This is just colander over my little Dutch oven. I love these little Dutch ovens. And I'm just stirring it up to make sure it's drained pretty well. One more time. And they're so tiny, I thought they would even go through the colander, but they're not going through the colander. So, all right. And nutritionally, these lentils, they say they're about the same. They're the same as the red lentils and the brown lentils that we typically might see. Just a different texture and a little bit heartier taste and everything like that. So a nice option. Okay, so after this is done, I left my recipes over here. We're going to, oh, and by the way, they say triple the water, by the way, not sometimes it'll be like 1 to 1 for these lentils. It's triple the water, 2 cups of dry lentils. So I put 1 cup of dry lentils to 3 cups of water. And that's how much it took. There wasn't much to drain. So they were right. They were right in their directions. Okay. So now we're going to, I've already roasted the beet too, because the beets, there's a beet in this recipe that takes an hour. And so I already cut them up into quarters. The beets, I just took 1 beet because it said 2 small beets. They only had huge beets at the store. I mean, they were like this big. So I thought that would be plenty for this recipe. And I wrapped it in foil, put it in my air fryer on roast I did bake for a whole hour. That's how long it took. I think because it was such a solid big beet. It took a whole hour for 1 beet wrapped in foil in my my toaster oven / air fryer. And it's definitely gets the heat on. So that took a while just to give you a heads up with baking big beets. Does anybody eat beets? Anybody enjoy beets? Beet salads? Anything like that? You can make a lot of natural food coloring with beets too. So, okay. So we're going to put these lentils in a bowl now. I'm going to move this aside. Because we're going to start mixing in the other ingredients. A little bit of water. Okay. Just don't want it to get too wet in that salad. I think we're good. Okay. And it's really, just a lot of assembly, adding the ingredients, tossing it. So what we'll do next is we will do we're gonna add the baby spinach. This one has a baby spinach. You could use any green you like. I did like the spinach in it. It gives it a little flavor. And if spinach, if it's wilting a little bit, because we served it warm pretty much the first time we had it. I don't mind a little bit of a wilted spinach, but I don't think I would want it if it was more of a romaine or a leaf lettuce, because when they wilt, they just don't keep the texture as much as something like a spinach would. So I would stick with spinach personally, especially if you're going to serve it on the warmer side. So this is the amount it says, it's 5 ounces. And I'm just going to dump it in because this is already washed. See how you need it. I wanted to stick with a clear bowl so you can see it, but really you could use a bigger bowl than this one. Okay. Excuse me. And then it calls for, excuse me, something in my throat. Feta cheese. I finally found a really good feta cheese. Mentioned the last time. It's milder than your typical stronger feta cheese. For those of you that like a milder feta cheese, this Odyssey brand was really good. Next up, I would say is that Athenos brand. That's not so bad either. You can get some really strong feta cheeses out there. So it's really hit or miss, seems like, until I find the brand I like. And this is to be crumbled. I do like buying my feta in a whole chunk so that I can crumble it myself. I think that helps it get some of that brine with it. Helps it keep its texture, its flavor. It doesn't get too dry. I don't like to ever buy crumbled feta cheese. It's cheaper that way, but I really prefer the chunk. And I just use my hands, as you can see. You could chop it up, but I just think it's just as easy, and I like the way it looks better than having chopped feta in there. So I'm just doing, you could do blue cheese, you could do really any cheese you want. I did like it with the feta with the lentils. Lentils have such a mild flavor that it really is nice to have something with a little more flavor to balance that. I'm just gonna leave it like that because we'll be tossing it a little bit. Then we're going to make sure we do this correctly because I don't want to do it wrong. In the large lentils with baby spinach, beets, shallots, and crumbled feta cheese. So the beets, I'm going to put them in. This was enough beets for me. It does turn some things pink, which can add a nice little color if you like that. And then it had a shallot. I'm going to tell you these shallots I got. I'm not going to put it in here. I'll just show you this is a shallot. Usually they're a little bit longer in length. That's why I was even thinking maybe I got a regular onion by mistake. But I think it's a shallot. It was so strong. These shallots I got were so strong. It overpowered the salad. So I'm not going to add it today. But typically the recipe does call for what was it for the shallots? 1 small shallot, thinly sliced. And that's what I used, and I just didn't need it. So I'm not going to do that today. So we're going to toss this. And we're going to just get it started with the